Welcome back to The Price of Business. I am your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Got Lee Kaplan on. He has been a contributor on The Price of Business before, and so delighted to get him back on. We're going to be hearing more and more of him. He's got great knowledge of what's happening in the legal front, but I also like his, I guess you could say, armchair quarterbacking, if you will, when it comes to what's happening politically. Lee, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks. I guess people think I'm opinionated. That might be a fair assessment.
That's probably a very fair assessment, but also well-versed in your opinions, which I think is refreshing. Everyone, you can get opinions on everyone for a beer or a dime, yet most of the time you don't want to hear it. You got a lot of very thoughtful interests out there, and I always enjoy that. You're with a law firm called Spicer, Kaplan, and Veselka.
That's right.
There we go, Veselka. Say it 3 times, Kevin. See how lucky you get. And you can learn more about them at skv.com. That's skv.com. Let's start a little bit by talking about an overview of your personal practice and history as an attorney.
Well, I grew up as a trial lawyer because that's what I knew I wanted to do from the beginning.
You like a good fight.
Always, we had a little bit of an argument at the dinner table when I was growing up. Everybody had dinner together, and we talked about, what happened at school today, what happened at work today. Everybody had an opinion for somebody. But, I did high school debate, and I always knew I wanted to be a trial lawyer. So I grew up doing that in state and federal courts. That's what I still do today. And most of what I do today is some kind of commercial dispute. There are a lot of trade secrets cases, people who leave companies and start new companies or join a competitor. There are patent cases, there are fraud cases. People find lots of ways to disagree with each other in business. And trial lawyers are sort of the lubrication that help get those disputes worked out in the courts. That's what the courts are for.
Mm-hmm. And your practice, is that indicative of the larger practice as well?
When you say the larger practice,
your firm's SKV?
Well, yes, individual lawyers might do different things, but yes, we're a general trial firm doing mostly civil work, a few white-collar criminal matters, and in a city like Houston, there are all kinds of disputes that crop up in this area. Some of the things I just mentioned, but you have royalty owners who think that an oil company or an operator is not treating them right. You have different kinds of small businesses that have some sort of a nuisance problem with, say, a neighbor business that's making it impossible for them to conduct their own business. Different things come up all the time, and luckily we have a way to adjudicate that doesn't involve bullets or spears. Although sometimes people would prefer that method. It can be quicker.
That's true. So let's just stick a fork in it. Or a sword, whatever you prefer. So how long is SKV has been existing as a firm?
Our 19th anniversary is this coming February 6th. So we've been in business almost 19 years. Started with 3 of us who left large firms, and we speedily added a few people, and then we've grown very slowly. We now have 13 lawyers.
Wow, that's fantastic. I think that's incredible. And it's great to see. And again, I'm looking at the website, skv.com. Pretty interesting group of attorneys here. You talk about diverse. It looks like a lot of different backgrounds involved there.
Well, I like to say that the younger lawyers are much smarter than the older lawyers. We always try to hire better people.
Yeah.
And the younger lawyers are all over it. We have people we can turn things over to and know that they're going to be creative, they're going to work hard, and they're going to make it happen. So I can trust them. And I stay awake at night worrying about a lot of things, but not whether or not the other people at my firm are taking care of our business.
That's good. That's a good feeling. So talk a little bit, because I know you are very interested in what's happening in the political front. Any interesting headlines you've seen that have caught your attention?
Well, I saw something in the Chronicle today that I just found astounding. Everybody knows, I think, that the abortion limitations or the restrictions that the Texas legislature has passed are now up in front of the Fifth Circuit, the first level of the federal appellate courts. And it looks like a very conservative panel is evaluating whether those laws or that law is too restrictive on abortion providers. Mm-hmm. And I noticed in the Chronicle today that one of the abortion rights advocates was arguing that people in the valley are basically excluded from those services, and that women there have to drive 150 miles each way if they want to have an abortion. Now, that's whatever we may think about it, it's still a constitutionally protected right. And one of the judges, former Chief Judge of the Fifth Circuit, Edith Jones, said, well, at 75 miles an hour, that's not very long. That's a particularly flat highway. And I was thinking to myself, Judge, let's just assume that you wanted to get a breast cancer screening and the legislature didn't believe that radiation was regulated enough. And they regulated it so much that you had to drive 5 hours round trip to get a breast cancer screening. Mm-hmm. Would you be saying, well, gee, that's a particularly flat highway?
Yeah.
I have to admit, judges are supposed to be devil's advocates in hearings, but knowing enough about Judge Jones, I don't think she was being a devil's advocate. That's just her view. And
kind
I
of
thought
indicative of her belief system. And then it always goes back to the larger argument of abortion in itself. And so, yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right in terms of, in terms maybe a lack of empathy in terms of how that was responded. Another thing you talked about just before the break that I thought was rather perceptive is the situation going on in California.
It's always interesting. In the past, we've always thought that California and Texas are countercyclical economically, because if energy is expensive, California would be suffering. And if it were real cheap, then Texas would be suffering. What's interesting is we have this shale gas revolution. A lot of it's here. We're doing fine. And California has an economy that seems to be recovering much faster than anybody would have expected. We talk about their taxes being ridiculous. We talk about their kind of community values being ridiculous, and yet their economy is flourishing. Now, why is that? I think the reason is that they respect education and innovation more than we seem to. They've got a more diversified economy. They've got the Googles and the Yahoos of the world. What do we have? We have oil companies. Mm-hmm. It's astounding to me that California, which is many ways has a restrictive government and a lot of extra laws, is flourishing and has more innovation and entrepreneurial development in different areas than we do. And we need to look at that. That's a bad sign for Texas.
When you look at the larger context, though, there's always the issue of how many people have left California in recent years. And where they came, of course, is to Texas. I mean, look at demographically, there's been a massive shift. At some point, you got to begin to create policies that's going to make people stay where they are, which maybe that's finally begun to happen.
Well, we need to respect education more in Texas. And we can talk about this more, but my thinking is we've got a whole generation of kids, particularly Hispanic kids in the Valley and African Americans in big cities, who are not getting a very good education. That's our workforce. That's our future entrepreneurs.
Lee Kaplan, he is again an attorney. I want you to learn more about him and his practice at skv.com. That is Spicer, Kaplan, and Veselka law firm. Check him out there, skv.com. Thanks so much, Lee.
Thank you.
Good to see you. We'll be seeing you more very soon right here on The Price of Business.